Powerful institutions do not begin with madness. They begin with logic. They begin with problems that feel unsolvable. And during the early Cold War, the problem felt absolute. The United States believed it was facing an enemy that did not think like it did. Not just politically, not just militarily, but psychologically. The Soviet Union appeared disciplined, opaque, unreachable. American intelligence officers did not fear Soviet weapons alone. They feared Soviet control over people. There were reports. Defectors spoke of prisoners who confessed without resistance, soldiers who appeared broken without visible force. The details were vague, the certainty was not. Something was happening behind closed borders, and the United States could not afford to be ignorant of it. The fear was not that mind control was real. The fear was that it might become real. During this period, intelligence agencies were expanding rapidly. Budgets grew, authority consolidated, urgency overruled hesitation. The Cold War rewarded speed. If an idea sounded extreme, that did not make it dismissible. It made it dangerous to ignore. Psychology was changing at the same time. Behaviorism suggested that human actions could be conditioned. Psychiatry promised access to the hidden mind. Chemistry offered new substances that altered perception and identity. None of these fields claimed full control over the human mind, but together they suggested something close. The question was no longer whether minds could be influenced. That much was obvious. The question was whether influence could be systematized, weaponized, made reliable. Inside intelligence circles, this did not sound like science fiction. It sounded like an engineering problem. If fear could be induced, it could be studied. If memory could be disrupted, it could be measured. If identity could be weakened, it could be exploited. And if an enemy was already pursuing these methods, then restraint became a liability. The United States had already crossed similar lines before. During World War II, it had embraced radar, code-breaking, and nuclear physics. Each began as theory. Each became decisive. Mind control in this framing was simply the next frontier. It did not require belief in magic. It required belief in process. This belief took root quietly. It was not announced publicly. It did not pass through Congress. It moved through internal memos, through classified briefings, through closed rooms where senior officials spoke to one another without outside challenge. In these rooms, skepticism did not disappear. It was managed. Doubts were reframed as gaps in data. Failures were framed as incomplete trials. No one claimed success, but no one declared impossibility either. That distinction mattered. If something was unproven, it deserved further funding. If something was untested, it demanded expansion. The early experiments were modest by design. They focused on interrogation, on stress, on isolation. Could sleep deprivation break resistance? Could sensory deprivation unmoor identity? Could fear be induced without physical marks? Each question led to another. What chemicals might accelerate the process? What environments increased compliance? What personalities resisted longer than others? The human mind was treated as terrain, mapped incompletely, but assumed navigable. At no point did a single breakthrough occur. There was no moment of confirmation. Instead, there was momentum. As reports accumulated, they created the appearance of progress. Charts replaced anecdotes. Terminology replaced uncertainty. Language gave structure to doubt. And once structured, doubt became manageable. The institutional logic was simple. If even partial control was possible, it would be invaluable. If total control was impossible, discovering that limit was still worth the cost. The cost at this stage was abstract. Budgets were numbers, subjects were categories, consequences were hypothetical. What mattered was not proof. What mattered was belief reinforced by authority. Senior officials endorsed the direction. Medical professionals advised on methods. Contractors offered expertise. Each layer validated the others. By the early 1950s, the idea had passed a threshold. It was no longer a question. It was a program. a formal effort to explore the manipulation of human behavior, not because it was proven to work, but because the institutions responsible believed they could not afford to assume it would fail. This belief did not emerge from delusion. It emerged from fear, confidence, and time, and once established, it could only move forward. At this point, the project had not yet acquired its most famous name, but its direction was already fixed. The program took shape without ceremony. There was no single launch date, no public mandate. It emerged through approvals, through reallocations of existing funds, through research proposals that appeared narrow on paper, behavioral studies, interrogation techniques, chemical effects on cognition. Individually, each component appeared defensible. Together, they formed something broader. The agency coordinating these efforts relied on a familiar structure: outsource complexity, fragment responsibility. Universities were contracted, hospitals were approached, private laboratories were funded. Many participants did not know who was paying them. Others knew, but not the scope. This compartmentalization was not accidental. It reduced risk. It preserved deniability. It also prevented anyone from seeing the full picture. Inside the program, one substance quickly drew attention: lysergic acid diethylamide. LSD was new, poorly understood, extraordinarily potent in small doses. Early reports described profound changes in perception, time distortion, loss of identity, heightened suggestibility. To intelligence officials, this was not recreational chemistry, it was a possible key. If a substance could temporarily dismantle the sense of self, it might open the mind to influence, not persuasion, not argument, access. LSD began appearing across multiple experiments. Subjects were given the drug in controlled settings, in hospital rooms, in offices, in safe houses. Sometimes they were informed, often they were not. The objective was not therapy, it was observation. How long did disorientation last? Could instructions be followed? Could false memories be implanted? Results were inconsistent. Some subjects became withdrawn, others became anxious. Some resisted entirely. A few appeared compliant for brief periods. There was no repeatable outcome, but inconsistency did not halt progress. Instead, it justified escalation. Dosages were adjusted, combinations were tested, environmental stressors were added. Sleep deprivation, isolation, white noise, total darkness. Each variable was altered to see if unpredictability could be reduced. It could not. Yet the program continued to grow. New sub-projects were created, each with its own code name, each addressing a specific question. Could hypnosis amplify chemical effects? Could repetition overwrite memory? Could trauma accelerate compliance? There was no central theory, only persistence. Authority played a critical role. The program operated under high-level approval. That approval carried weight. Researchers assumed ethical clearance existed elsewhere. Administrators assumed scientific validity had been established earlier. Responsibility diffused upward and outward. No single participant controlled direction, but no one stopped it either. Failures were documented carefully, successes were described cautiously, but the language of internal reports remained technical, neutral, measured. Terms like disintegration, regression, receptivity. These words created distance. They turned human reactions into data points. As years passed, expectations quietly shifted. The original goal of precise control faded. In its place emerged a more modest aim: disruption. If minds could not be controlled, perhaps they could be destabilized. If resistance could not be erased, perhaps it could be delayed. Even temporary confusion could be operationally useful. This reframing preserved momentum. The program no longer needed to succeed fully. It only needed to contribute something. Budgets remained intact. Oversight remained minimal. Questions about effectiveness were postponed. Questions about safety were deferred. The logic was self-reinforcing. Too much had already been invested to stop. Too many reports had been written. Too many assumptions embedded. At this stage, the program finally acquired its formal name, a name that would later eclipse its contents. But internally, the name mattered less than the continuation. What mattered was that the work proceeded, and that it remained protected by classification. The absence of results did not weaken belief, it hardened it. Because if answers had not yet appeared, the reasoning went, then the search simply had to go further. The end did not arrive as a revelation. There was no decisive failure. The program began to unravel through exposure rather than conclusion. By the early 1970s, the political climate had shifted. Trust in government had eroded. Secrecy drew attention instead of protection. Congress began asking questions, not about effectiveness, about authority. Internal documents surfaced. Testimony revealed fragments of past work. Even then, the picture remained incomplete. Much of the program's history no longer existed on paper. Years earlier, senior officials had ordered records destroyed. The rationale was administrative: reduce liability, protect sources, preserve institutional stability. What remained were summaries, redactions, memories. Investigators encountered gaps they could not close. Sub-projects were referenced without detail. Expenditures lacked explanation. Outcomes were missing. Some participants testified. They described confusion more than clarity. Researchers recalled uncertainty. Officials recalled intent. No one could demonstrate success, but few could articulate a stopping point either. The name of the program entered public awareness during these investigations. It became a label for many activities, some connected, some not. This aggregation created the appearance of coherence that never truly existed. In reality, the program had always been fragmented. Dozens of lines of inquiry, few conclusions. The central question remained unresolved. Could human behavior be reliably controlled through scientific means? The answer, if one existed, was not found here. Funding ended, offices closed, but there was no formal admission of failure, only silence. The institutions involved did not collapse. They adapted. Structures changed, oversight increased, the work moved on to other domains. The episode became historical, not because it was unique, but because it was documented at all. Most large programs end quietly. They dissolve into budgets. They are replaced by new priorities. This one left traces because it intersected with a moment of scrutiny. Looking back, the striking feature is not the experiments themselves. It is their duration. For years, intelligent professionals pursued an idea without proof of viability. They were not acting irrationally in their own framework. They responded to incentives, to authority, to fear of falling behind an unseen adversary. At no point did belief require certainty, only continuation. The program did not reveal the secrets of the mind. It revealed something simpler: how institutions behave when questions outpace answers, how momentum substitutes for evidence, how classification shields persistence. This is not a story of villains or visionaries. It is a record of systems moving forward because they were built to do so. The project ended. The belief that began it did not. That belief remains familiar. That with enough resources, enough time, even the most elusive problems can be engineered into submission. History suggests otherwise.